one more final session before the break. So we have a case study coming up, which is digitalization in biopharma. So it's perspective on how to measure success of a DTX product in the portfolio FX. So let me introduce you the speaker who's joining us all the way from Denmark. Kim is
Hi, Mithun.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So so Kim is the co-founder and CEO of Brain Plus, and he's so this is the first time I'm seeing you in the conference. So welcome.
Thank
and
you.
I let you I let you take the floor without losing any more time. So off to you.
Thank you, Mithun. So hello, everybody. I'll speak a bit from the perspective of a company that's working with creating digital therapeutics on a daily basis and who is collaborating with the pharmaceutical industry to do so. So we're actually talking the digitalization of the products that are going out to the patient. So that's the perspective I'll try to give. And I'll start by telling a little bit about my own background and the company, so you can see who am I to be speaking about this topic, and then hopefully it will be an interesting outside-in perspective from somebody from outside of pharma on how we would see some of the value that is created by pharma and how you could potentially evaluate by some main criteria digital therapeutics companies in a pharma portfolio. So that's really the purpose of today. So I will be sharing my screen here with you guys, and we'll switch here to a PowerPoint. Good. So yeah, three quick bullets here, and maybe if there's time for questions, we'll get to that later. So first, Brain Plus. Like, what are we actually doing in this company? We're addressing one of the biggest problems that is facing the healthcare system today, which is brain disorders. It's already the #1 cause of disability on a global level, if measured by disability-adjusted life years, and it will become the leading cause of death within a reasonable future. If you look at brain disorders, 1 billion people are suffering from it around the world. In the EU alone, the cost is 800 billion euros. If you look at a disease like dementia, which is one of the ones that we're specializing in, the expected cost of that will be around 3 trillion if we're looking a couple of decades into the future. So what all these brain disorders have in common is that they result in cognitive deficits, which is the lack of ability to concentrate, to remember things, to control your impulses, to problem solve, etc. And only about 3% of them are actually being treated for those cognitive deficits. So at Brain Plus, what we're working with is helping patients restore independence and quality of life by treating and preventing brain disorders. And what we excel at is helping patients recover and strengthen their brain's cognitive abilities that I was just talking about. And we do so by creating digital therapeutics. And many of you have probably heard about this new industry category for a while. It has some certain characteristics, one of them being working with clinically validated methods and with clinical validation of the digital therapeutic itself, taking it through the regulatory process as a CE mark software as a medical device, or the same in the US, if it's an FDA, then it would be an FDA approval. What we focus on, especially in our company, is the power of gamification to create patient engagement, compliance, and empowerment, and the use of data. The use of data to create not only tailored, personalized treatments, but doing so in a way that dynamically adapts to the patient's needs and improves the enjoyment of the actual experience. So when we think about digitalization of pharma, then in our case, we are digitizing the product and the actual treatments. So in our case, we have a platform which consists of patient-facing mobile apps where the treatments are delivered on. And then there is a clinician web app for clinicians, therapists, medical personnel, healthcare staff, where they can track compliance, development of the treatments, etc. Just to give a few examples to make this a little bit more tangible, we have a couple of products, one already on the Danish market. One is called Recover. It's for late stage acquired brain injury rehabilitation after stroke and traumatic brain injury. The mechanism of action or mode of action is cognitive training, specifically designed for challenging the attentional and the working memory systems of the brain, using a number of different cognitive exercises, let's say disguised as games. So we actually engage the patient in playful treatments. Another example is something called cognitive stimulation therapy. It is a well-validated method for treatment of early mild to moderate dementia. It's a psychosocial method. It's the standard of care in the UK, recommended by NICE. We're digitizing this, gamifying it, so we can bring it into people's home at scale. So these are a couple of examples. And in the longer run, we have a laboratory, you can say, discovery lab, where we're developing some more advanced things or long-term things. One is an early detection test that can detect preclinical signs of Alzheimer's disease, a memory test originally developed by Oxford University that we have then gamified and made scalable in collaboration with Oxford University. So our ambition is to create a dementia and Alzheimer's platform for early detection, treatment, and prevention of Alzheimer's and dementia. And how do we work with this? What's a key point when you want to digitize medical products? Is, of course, clinical validation. So here are some examples of this is our clinical development program, where we have a number of trials going on in a number of different therapeutic areas. Majority of them relate to dementia and Alzheimer's, either directly being on the continuum or being high-risk groups. So acquired brain injury, for example, is a high-risk group of dementia. Even though we're working directly with treating acquired brain injury, we also see them as a funnel into a high-risk dementia segment. And all of these products are developed with some of the leading clinicians and academics around the world. You can see some of the names here on the screen. So I think that's a key point when you're digitalizing medical treatment, is, of course, that you treat it with the same amount of respect, the same amount of thoroughness, safety, efficacy, validation, regulation, etc. And that is really the future, a big new future part of how we will be treating patients will be through digital means. So I'll get a little bit back to that in relation to the actual success criteria that you can be looking at if you're looking at this from a pharma product portfolio perspective. Just like a few high-level points on digital therapeutics as a key trend going on that will be contributing to the digitalization of pharma is the fact that the regulatory landscape is maturing quite rapidly here. And so this is a statement from the director of the FDA Center for Devices and Radiological Health that says, FDA is committed to providing regulatory pathways that enable patients timely access to safe and effective, innovative digital therapeutics. So the regulatory authorities are really gearing up for this. We're a little bit behind in Europe, although some countries are really moving ahead fast, like the UK have had a good regulatory guidance or guidance in terms of clinical evidence generation for adoption by NHS. And we see Germany moving ahead quite rapidly, and some countries trying to emulate what Germany is doing, just a little bit more behind, like France, for example. We, of course, have the new MDD regulations coming into place, and they do take into consideration software as medical device regulations, but more development is also still needed in this area. What's also really interesting from a pharma perspective is that, and especially a biopharma, if you think of it from a biopharma angle, is that we're seeing more and more cases of digital therapeutics companies doing partnering and licensing deals with pharma companies. So this is becoming more and more normal, and it will become normal. I would certainly bet on in the coming decade that we'll be seeing digital therapeutics becoming a new category that functions a lot like biotech. So you can also think of it as digital biotech. So really where you'll have smaller innovative companies that will be coming up with new innovative treatments that are provided in a digital format, and that will then be licensing or partnering with larger pharma companies for either maturing the product through a regulatory and reimbursement process, and or simply commercializing the product into different markets all over the world. So there's really a great trend happening here. So what about digital therapeutics in pharma portfolios? And why? And first of all, why is it important? Well, I mean, in the short run, it has benefits which are direct value creation, and we'll get back to that some more. So value creation for patient, improved health outcomes, innovation, economic benefits like sales, improved margins, new markets. We'll get back to that in a bit more detail. But I think a key point that I want to start with here is that in the long run, pharma really needs to expand into more of this entire digital health ecosystem to survive, or at least to retain the very lucrative, profitable position that pharma has been in for many decades. Because we are seeing the rise of more illnesses, chronic diseases that are untreatable, or at least we haven't been able to treat them yet. Again, Alzheimer's is a splendid example of this, with very high failure rates. But in general, more and more of these chronic diseases are being treated in terms of behavioral change, lifestyle change, that are targeting more root cause risks related to chronic disease. And again, dementia is a great example, where there are now a number of well-recognized lifestyle risks that will highly increase the chance of getting dementia later in life. And in general, we can see that the current way of providing healthcare, while being effective in many areas and should continue to be so, will be unable to, on its own at least, deal with some of the health problems that we're seeing today. So those costs are getting out of control. So it's really a systems thinking perspective that will be required from pharma to really embrace digitalization on a larger scale and start thinking about expanding its portfolios of products and treatments to be not only biochemical, but also be digital. So that I think is a really key point, one that shouldn't be ignored. Easy to ignore in the short run, very hard to ignore in the long run. So one perspective I want to offer is that we need to, or a pharma company needs to, really evaluate digital therapeutic solutions according to a couple of different, basically three different, you can say, archetypical ways of providing value to the end user. One of them is what is called a standalone digital therapeutic. It means that it doesn't have any other interaction with, doesn't require any other interaction with another product like a medicine. It works on its own. It is in a way pure digital medicine, can be provided to the patients. It can be with or without some kind of clinician support, just like a drug regimen can be supported in the sense that you have a medical doctor that will be advising you along on this journey. But the point is here that it's really something that can be delivered into the hands of patients at scale, anywhere, on its own, with similar proven efficacy, health outcomes, similar efficacy evidence, similar safety evidence, similar type of regulation. So regulatory approvals from the FDA and the EMA in Europe. And some of the key value drivers here for the standalone, and they're not the only one by any means. On this slide, I'm really just trying to say there are some specific value drivers that are worth noticing for each of these categories. And for the standalone category, it's really scale and reach. So here you can reach into any area of the world, into any home at any time, into any target audience, any target group. Because that's really the power of digital. Again, a great example of that is There's this cognitive stimulation therapy that I was talking about before that's really only being delivered right now in group sessions at a clinic. All of this can all of a sudden be delivered at patients' homes directly. And the other thing is cost savings. Again, this can apply across all therapeutic, all of these categories, but it's really for the standalone one really interesting because here a standalone therapeutic can be really easily, of course, delivered to a patient without any cost of delivery, with a marginal cost of 0. It can go in and help replace expensive clinician-based or human-based interventions with pure digital interventions. A bit on then the second category here, complementary. Here we're thinking about having a digital therapeutic product that is then combined in an offering to a patient with a drug, for example. So that can be a value, that can also be thought of as a value-added contribution. These products can serve different functions in this combination. One thing is it can be a differentiation of the actual drug. One of the things that we're in discussion with some pharma companies who have more generic type drugs on the market is to be able to offer something that will differentiate those products in the eyes of the patients, that will be a clear value added in the eyes of the patients. And so that's one way to think about the value added benefit. And there are also some really interesting possibilities to explore here, which is extending the intellectual property rights life of a product. That's a more, you can say, demanding and complex value creation on this side, which could be that that a product can actually have an extended life. Actually, and I would say here maybe I've made a small mistake. I think that belongs in the combination category, so I'll just save it for there. Let's jump straight to that one then, because this will be the first point there. Then in the combination category, we're looking at a combination treatment. So here you would run, for example, an intervention where it's crucial that the patient is taking the drug and is using the digital therapeutic at the same time. And in a clinical trial setup, you would be looking for improved health outcomes that is above and beyond what any of those two interventions could result in on their own. So basically, it might enhance the actual effect of the medicine, either through, in some cases that have been seen in the industry already, by compliance. So the digital therapeutic can improve the compliance of actually taking the medicine, which in turn leads to improved health outcomes in clinical trials. But it may actually be a direct synergistic effect. Some of the things that we're looking at and have in our longer term pipeline is something like, for example, combining drugs that have neuro-enhancing or neuroplasticity enhancing qualities, could be antidepressants, for example, and combining that with things like cognitive training, where there's a direct benefit and synergy in the modes of action of the two different products that are then combined into a combination therapy. In this case, we're talking about the potential for an extended intellectual property rights lifetime, where something that may be off patent could be basically retested with the help of a digital therapeutic for an improved for a new and improved health outcome, and then have the potential even for a repatenting situation of the drug. So and something which is then uncopyable by generics companies, because they would not have the digital therapeutic available to them to create the similar effects. So here we're really talking about synergy effects between digital therapeutics and traditional medicine. So jumping straight then into some portfolio success criteria, and these are on a high level, broad strokes, you can say, but really some important ones, I think. I mean, the obvious one, key direct value creation, here we're looking at what I call direct value creation, is improved patient outcomes. In terms of economic value, that can translate into better prices, better margins, extended IPR life, like we were talking about. So here we're looking at efficacy, compliance synergies, and that increases the reimbursement potential. And then there is, from the patient's perspective, of course, a perception of value as well, which is extended in the next point, which is using digital therapeutics products can be a very good way to increase patient satisfaction, general engagement. So something like loyalty and retention, which is really key as well, is very difficult to do with a drug. But you can actually create digital therapeutics that people come to love and really value to have as part of their daily lives in different ways. So that creates a much stronger link to the customer than is possible with just traditional medicine. Another thing to consider is things like the fact that there is customer login. Why does that happen with DTX? Well, because there is a learning curve for DTX. So unlike taking another pill that you're replacing one pill with another. We've all tried taking pills. Learning a digital therapeutic does have a learning curve, both for the patient, but also for the clinician. Also, especially if the clinician is taking advantage of using some of the informatics data analysis that can be coming out of a digital therapeutics analysis platform, for example. Then getting them to integrate that into their workflows and using that as part of what they do, that can create some switching costs, which means that it's a barrier to entry. Of course, it costs more than to integrate it as a first mover, but then you're also much better protected afterwards, because it's not enough that a competitor comes with a product that is as good or even a bit cheaper if you have worked and are very happy with a solution that you've been working with for a while. This doesn't mean that there are not like standalone digital therapeutic solutions that will become very normal, almost as medicine, as part of a workflow of a general practitioner. That may be the case, but there are certainly different types of digital therapeutics that will build a customer login due to switching costs. Then new sales is obviously a key evaluation criteria here. There you would use many of the usual criteria. I'm not going to go through those, but I think there are two key things to consider here: add-on sales to existing products and customers. For example, the fact that you would then have longer engagement, better retention, more upselling of patients on existing drugs, like we are just discussing with value-added combination from before, but also the fact that digital therapeutics make it possible to access new markets, new customers. One example is, for example, this early detection of preclinical detection of Alzheimer's disease. And for a pharma company, being able to access patients years before they get a dementia diagnosis means that this is an entirely new segment of patients that can be engaged at a much earlier stage, for example, than would have been the case previously. Some things here then on some indirect value. One thing is of course the fact that a pharma company that is working with digital therapeutics will get some brand value out of that. Just being innovative, tech savvy, being part of a solution. Here we're talking about the healthcare system being more sustainable, because digital therapeutic is obviously a very, very sustainable type of healthcare at zero marginal cost for each new, you can say, product being each new license being produced of something already developed. Then brand value differentiation, both on a company level and a product level. On a product level, like the value-added combination that we were just talking about before. And then in terms of new marketing opportunities, there are, for example, and there will be opportunities for really marketing a DTX product that is an open window of opportunity right now for pharma that have very, very limited marketing room to maneuver, very highly regulated, where DTX is much less regulated, at least for now. And then an interesting perspective, which is easy to lose sight of when you're just evaluating an individual product, is the impact potential on the pharma company's overall company valuation. One thing is the long-term view, right? Is this a future-proof company? Is it preparing for a paradigm shift of healthcare where we'll be seeing more preventative care, more holistic care, more at-home care, more remote care, and where we will see traditional medicine being replaced, at least in many areas, by non-pharmacological types of interventions. Then there's, of course, the direct implication of having future potential of sales and margins, the direct, the discounted future value of that. And then there's the overall innovation profile of the company. So we do hear in the industry about pharmaceutical companies that are really very savvy about this and are taking in and working with digital therapeutics, because even though they may not realize initial, you can say, gains until many years into the future, they're realizing immediate gains of value creation in terms of their company valuation. Then finally, the more, you can say, boring stuff, but the stuff that really has to be taken into account is also, is there a fit? Is there a fit between the digital therapeutic product and the current portfolio of the pharma company and its disease areas? Is there a fit in the terms of the team dynamics of the digital therapeutics company? And here, of course, I'm talking about if you're working closely with a digital therapeutics company on some co-development deal, or somebody that you're licensing from, but are dependent on in terms of service, maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. How are the team dynamics? Are there some shared objectives on how to work together and what the companies are trying to accomplish? Then there's the overall readiness. So is the pharma company even, how ready are you for working with digital therapeutics? Do you have a strategy for it? Has the organization dedicated resources to it? Do you have an organization for it, even processes for it? So that's, of course, an important thing to consider. And if that's not in place, it will be a more, you can say, costly and complex affair to work with the digital therapeutics products directly in the portfolio, in the product portfolio. And then you, of course, have to look at the digital therapeutic companies' readiness for working with pharma. So how mature are they? Where are they in terms of evidence, quality standards, data privacy, all the usual suspects, which is also part of the next point, which is kind of the risk evaluation, which is necessary, of course. But here I would then probably conclude with this big question that ties some of all of this together, which is, when should pharma partner with a DTX company? I would say, in terms of the future proofing of a pharma company and being on the front lines, I would say as soon as possible, if nothing else, to start gaining experience with this new world, which will really become a big part of healthcare in the future. But if you look at it more from a portfolio perspective and a value creation perspective, I think you can compare it a lot to what's happening, how it works in biotech. So basically, the earlier in the value chain you can get in, the more value creation you could potentially capture. That this could mean working very early on with co-development with a DTX company. We've seen that happening more and more. Some of the things like Click Therapeutics is a good example of that have started doing some very early deals of co-development at a quite early stage in a product life cycle, where there may be some very early proof of concept data, and then the DTX and the pharma makes a deal to work together on it. If you want to play it more safe, of course, you wait until the DTX company has taken this all the way through regulatory approval, and then you engage there. But then the value capture will be much less, etc. And we may be seeing DTX companies becoming digital pharma companies in their own right, wanting to take this all the way to the market directly, commercializing it to end users, just like we're seeing some biotech companies doing it today. So think of it as basically as digital biotech, and that's a good way to look at it. And think of it as an exercise in really gaining experience with this sooner rather than later, if you're in charge of all of this. So with that said, I think we're out of time, and
Thank you, Kim, for this wonderful presentation. I forgot to mention in the introduction that Brain Plus, the company that Kim is co-founder and CEO of, is an award-winning Danish health tech company. And for me, this and disorders is completely new, and it was a discovery for me to hear about gamified behavioral therapy. So it was excellent. I really liked the idea of engaging patients in playful games, using gamification really as a core part of treatment. I liked to hear about the maturing regulatory landscape that you talked about, especially with the evidences from US, from Germany and UK. So I think that's a very, very positive news for the market. And I like to hear about those partnering that you talked about between big pharma and digital biotech companies. I think that's the way to go, and it's an excellent trend that you mentioned. And I personally like the way you explained us about the systems thinking perspective for digital treatment, like where it's not only just behavioral change or lifestyle change, it's also knowing lifestyle risks that you might have due to certain actions or certain behaviors that you're indulging in every day. So and then I also liked the about direct value creation. I absolutely like this concept. So we don't have any questions. We have one person in the audience, Jero Nordman, who wants to get in touch with you. So if you agree, I'll send him your email.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to share my my email on the stage chat. So anybody
perfect.
Can write me, and I'll share my LinkedIn on the stage chat as well. Oh, you already did that, so that's great.
Okay. Hello. Sorry for jumping in, but since you're already discussing the way to connect, I'd like to point out that we
and
me too. I just want to emphasize that we are building this community platform where the speakers and the attendees can elaborate on the topics in greater detail. So this is a way to connect or interact. Sorry, Mithun, for jumping in, but go on. Hello?
I hear you, Simona, but I'm not sure Mithun hears you.
Yeah, maybe there's this connection. So since I was so in to jump in, thank you so much, Kim, for introducing us the project you're working on. It was very insightful, and I hope that our audience can get as much of it. If they would like to connect to you even now after this session, I invite you to join the sessions, which are the breakout rooms. There's a room called post-session Q&A, where many things can be discussed and greater discussion can be held also with the attendees. So if you feel like that, you can go there. Maybe the audience can appreciate that as well. So thank you again, Kim. And we've got Mithun back.
I think I'll join the session and Q&A room in a few minutes. I just need a small break, and then I'll join.
Oh, definitely.
There. If anybody's interested in connecting, I'm happy to do it there.
Okay, perfect. Mithun, so you're back. I don't know if you had any closing remarks.
So everyone, I don't know if you can hear Simona. So there seems to be a network issue. I wanted to let you know that you can use the networking sessions during the break, and there will be also the Q&A session. So you have to just click on the sessions and click the Q&A session where speakers from this morning, so Kim and probably other speakers as well, will be available in that room. So to discuss Q&A. So feel free to use this platform to discuss, and we'll resume in a few. The next session
In
will
1
be at 2
hour.
p.m. So enjoy the networking lunch, and Simona will join you in a couple of minutes. So see you after the break.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Simona. Thanks, Midland.
Okay, so I'm staying on stage because, as I already mentioned, we've got this post-session Q&A, which you can join, but there are also other roundtables that might be of your interest. You can join the talks on the leadership, decision-making, or digitalization and innovation in the industry. So we've heard a bit about those topics, and it's up to you to discuss it with other attendees. I got even a question, which I still haven't managed to answer privately, but I can do it live, I suppose, that the best way to interact with other attendees is through those sessions. So you just choose your topic, which interests you most, and there you can join on screen with the rest of the audience. Another way to connect is through our new community platform called PPM Workout. As I mentioned in the beginning of this day, not sure if everybody was here. So I will just repeat myself that the platform is called PPM Workout for the reason that if you want to become strong and resilient in your body, you need to put some regular exercise to stay on top of the game. So the same applies for the professional expertise. You need regular training and interaction with others, motivation, and connecting with like-minded individuals. So that's why we created this separate platform. Might be something like social media, although I would not entirely compare it to the regular ones, because this is just a place that allows for individuals to create profiles, connect with each other, ask questions in a very interactive way, join different forums, and there are plenty of opportunities. We'll be holding regular webinars there every day, Monday till Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European time, outside of conference weeks. So you've got a lot to look forward to, and we'll be very happy to host you there. If you would like to find out more about the platform or about the upcoming masterclasses, you can join the expo area where my colleagues will be answering all the questions you might have about the masterclasses. We've got one held by Kelly Keane, who's opening the day tomorrow, I suppose. She's a CapEx master, and you can learn the inside out with her in the upcoming masterclass that's happening in April. Or you can find out more about project management from Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, who you could hear today in the morning, or the last masterclass by Dr. Richard Bainey, and it's about decision analysis and making great decisions within the portfolio. So there's a lot to learn. You can even get a very nice discount by joining, so make sure you check in there. And then the last part of what you can do is go for networking. It's like speed dating for professionals. You've got 20 to 180 seconds, which is like 3 minutes, to introduce each other. It's one-on-one. You'll be randomly selected to another professional in the audience, and you can just make very brief connection before connecting elsewhere. So that's it from me. I'll be running the demonstration of the platform later on. I believe it will be 2:30. I'll be on stage and running a demonstration of the new community platform. So you'll hear more about it then. Lovely seeing you, and happy networking.